You know the voice in your head? It's not just a voice. It's a movie you feel, a nightmare you act out in reality. It's time to wake up. What is it? It may seem like it worries, hates, judges, loves, wonders, complains, resists, rushes, disrespects, respects, but it doesn't do any of that. Any more than a record or a movie playing does any of that. Sometimes it looks like intelligence, and other times it looks like stupidity. But it's neither. It seems to control things, people, and events, but is itself out of control often. What is it? The voice in your head is thought. It is in every human being's head. It speaks in different languages. Its permutations and combinations are endless, appearing to make each being appear separate, based on what is stored in the mind. But the voice in the head is only the tip of the iceberg. There are many forms of thought. All 5 of your senses you have in the room, you also have virtual versions of in your mind: seeing, hearing, touching, tasting, and smelling. Each one a mental thought that we can sense. The mind is a movie theater, and the movies play in full 4D virtual reality experience. You can see it, hear it, touch it, taste it, and even smell it. You know how, when you just think about a cool, fresh, crisp lemon, that you can see it, and then you can smell it in the mind, right? Or when you just think about a sweet, steamy, hot apple pie with cinnamon, and you can just taste it in the mind, right? Or when you think about someone you love, and you can see them and feel them in the mind, right? So there's also emotion, which, being felt in the whole body mind, seems to trick us into believing that the imaginary is real. The voice is where language and stories arise from, which are stored on the hard drive of the mind. Here's my story about the battle with the voice in the head. A lot of people can relate to that. Who can relate to a nagging, negative voice in the head? And it was actually driving me crazy. It was excruciating, actually, at some point. I remember just collapsing in the kitchen, bawling, crying. And just moments earlier, I was just chopping vegetables. Everything was fine. And I collapsed on the floor, just bawling. And I kind of wondered, wow, what was that? How can I be fine 1 minute and then in this intense suffering the next? And it went on for weeks. I recognized that this voice was just going on and nagging, and it was just driving me crazy, and I didn't know what to do about it. That was even worse. Knowing that this is going on, not being able to stop it, and wanting so much to. And then it was so bad that for 3 days I was in this excruciating pain, and I remember just laying on the floor again. And the thought came to me, I think I'm dead. And then I thought that was a weird thought. And I took my pulse. And I went, well, no, my heart's still beating. I'm not dead. I'm alive. And then suddenly I went on this, I don't know what to call it, joy, bliss, peace, ecstasy. I went from the floor, from groveling on the floor, to this high peak of love, joy, peace, at the realization of, no, I'm not dead. That thought is not real, is not true. And that was another example of the separation of me from thought. Me and my story or my life, whatever. I'm not a thought. And then I went around on a high for 3 days with that realization and recognition that I couldn't put words into at the time, but something happened.
So I had a few experiences like that before I actually discovered the love and joy within that we all have. And before I ever called it alchemy, I didn't even know how I was shifting state. That's basically what it was. I was going from a really bad feeling into this amazing love, joy, peace, and very dramatically, very fast. You couldn't miss it, And I didn't understand how or why that was going on until I was in this intense suffering for weeks because I was denied the love I thought I had to have. I thought my love came from somebody else outside of me, and that was jerked out from underneath me. And I was left alone, me and my thoughts. And I was doing this intense wanting. I want, but it was very clearly obvious. You don't have. But I want, but I want, and go back into the suffering, and then, but you don't have. One of the things I tried to do was this thing called positive thinking, right? Where you're feeling bad, but you're trying to force a good thought on, And it was brutal. It was excruciating because it didn't work. And I'd be trying to just tell myself good things, Meanwhile, I'd be going, but it's not true. It's not real. What are you, crazy? Then I would say things like, well, but apparently everybody else does that, right? That's the thing to do, positive thinking, right? What's wrong with me? How come I can't do this? The more I tried to force a good thought on a bad feeling, the worse I felt. And I tried really hard. And then I finally gave that up. And then later on, in the middle of this intense suffering that had been going on for weeks because I'd been denied the love I thought I had to have, I thought it came from outside of me. In the middle of that, I just couldn't take anymore. I had the thought of suicide. But because my dad had died by suicide, and I'd promised him it would not be for nothing, the immediate answer was, no, that can't happen. But I can't take it anymore. I can't take this pain anymore. And so I didn't know what to do. And I just stopped, right in the middle of it. And in that stopping, I heard, you can give yourself whatever you want. Because I've been doing a lot of wanting. And then I went back into the suffering. But now this piece was thrown in. This, you can give yourself whatever you want, was in there at the same time. I want this, but you can give yourself whatever you want. But I want this. So suffering is like contracting down onto one thought to the elimination of all other possibilities. And then when you do that, you enhance the feeling that comes with that thought. It's like you're magnifying it. And so I'd contract down onto, but I want this. But you can give yourself whatever you want. So in other words, why want? But I said, well, if that's true, and I can give myself whatever I want, then it's here. It's not out there. And I turned my attention from out there to here. And that begged the next question, but wait a minute, what do I want? My attention had been powerfully contracting down onto what I didn't want. But that felt bad. So all the energy, and there was a lot of energy, I just took it and reversed it from out there to in here. What do I want? Acceptance, human dignity, love, joy. And as soon as I turned my attention onto it, that magnified it. I was feeling this love, this joy, this peace. I was like, that can't be mindset. That can't be because, you've been abandoned. You've been, dropped. You've been dumped. But wait a second. This felt good. No matter what mind said, this felt good. And so I put my attention back. And I just kept bringing it back. And then mind would come up and say, but blah, 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 blah. And I would go for a moment and then go, yeah, no, don't want that. And then I learned somehow to stay with the joy, with the love, with the peace. And it was a battle for a while. It was like back and forth and back and forth. But eventually it stabilized. And And once in a while, mind, what I now call old mind, would still come up, would rise up. I'd be walking down the street and it would come up and go blah, blah, blah. And I'd burst out laughing at it because realizing I don't have to do that that's an option, that it's not truth, it's not mandatory. And then I went around on a high for weeks because I knew I didn't have to suffer, ever. And that was so freeing. And then, because I was holding this love and this joy, I found out that the longer you stay with it, the more it grows. And I began to experiment.
In that old recording, I was describing how I had fallen in love with love itself. The rest is history. P.S. Have you ever felt disconnected from someone you love? What to do about it is coming up next.